Hi, this is Somni Bhartia, and welcome to TFR Insights. If you look at AI, Jupyter notebooks, they have kind of become a standard for data science and artificial intelligence model development. And now IBM is working on a toolkit. It's called Elyra AI Toolkit, which kind of extends the JupyterLab's user interface to further simplify the development of data science and AI model. And to discuss this project, we have with us Luciano Resende, open source AI platform architect. First of all, Luciano, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start just with the Jupyter Notebook. Can you tell us a bit about what role does it play for the data science community?
So the Jupyter Notebooks today has become sort of like the de facto standard for the data science community. It allows data scientists, AI engineers, and model developers to sort of like build models interactively. It enables them to have their code, but also start documenting, have rich visualizations. So in the sense, for example, if you're playing with the data and you want to understand the data better, you can start like interactively playing with that, seeing kind of like the results plot in a graph and different types of visualization that really enables you to be much more productive in a data science type of like environment or problem solving.
Excellent. Thanks for explaining that. Now, if you look at Elyra AI Toolkit project, what kind of, how it extends the user experience, user interface, what value does it bring to that platform?
So Elyra is a AI-centric extensions for JupyterLab. We started working on Elyra a year ago about that. So when we were helping the team that we have, I work at a group called CODAIT, which is Center for Open Source Data and AI Technologies. And we have a team of data scientists that were working on a project called Model Asset Exchange, and we were helping them. And during that help, we noticed that there were lots of tasks during the model lifecycle development that required a lot of like DevOps. So Elyra tries to solve that problem, particularly because when we look into data scientists, they are very kind of like a diverse community. They not necessarily come from a computer science background and don't have all of DevOps perspectives. So we look at as the data science persona and try to help them on sort of like those tasks. As an example, when we are building models, we notice that the tasks, the portions of that model development lifecycle were split into multiple notebooks. How can we then run those notebooks in different environments? So like if you're doing TensorFlow, or if you need a different type of like hardware, like GPUs, and we enable the pipeline editor, which brings you the ability to stitch together or create a workflow of notebooks and define properties such as which environment needs to run, kind of like variables, inputs and outputs necessary for that. And then you can seamlessly run that in different runtimes. We also noticed that, for example, Python script was very used on those. So we brought Python support directly from the notebooks, from the JupyterLab environment, which enables you to edit those and then leveraging our hybrid runtime support, run either locally or remotely, leveraging better resources or GPUs, for example.
Excellent. Since it's an open source project, can you talk about the core component of this toolkit?
Yeah, so Elyra is based on and leverage a couple of open source projects. One for sure is the Jupyter Notebooks, more specific the JupyterLab, which is the new UI, preferred UI for Jupyter Notebooks. JupyterLab brings you a more flexible UI, which is easier to extend, but also give you a lot more flexibility in terms of like how you can work on multiple notebooks or multiple things at the same time. So we leveraged that was kind of a framework for the interactive development and things related to notebook. We also have started a project in Jupyter called Jupyter Enterprise Gateway that came about 2 years ago. And that brings you scalability. It allows you to scale the notebooks to support big data analytics and also AI workloads in a distributed cluster environment. So we leveraged those two projects and started bringing Elyra on top. Another component that we introduced with Elyra is Canvas. Canvas is a component that we open source from IBM and has been developed as part of like Watson Studio. And that is kind of like what gives you the visual effects that you see when you're building the pipeline. For example, you can drag and drop artifacts or files into that. It will recognize there are notebooks. It will give you ability to stitch them together, add additional properties and things like that.
Can you talk about some of the core functionalities of the project?
Of course. So the first release of Elyra that it became available when we came open source introduced a couple of like main functionality. So we have the notebook pipelines visual editor that enables you to basically create a workflow of notebooks and run those in a remote systems. We currently are supporting a KFP, so Kubeflow pipelines environment, and we are looking for expanding that. We also have ability to run notebooks as batch jobs that uses the same capability as the pipelines. Is just a difference between like a one notebook versus multiple notebooks pipeline. We also have ability to do hybrid runtime support that enables you to kind of like interactively work on your notebook, either at a local environment or maybe leveraging some cloud resources very seamlessly. We have brought support for Python scripts directly from the editor, where you can edit locally your script and then run either locally or remote in a cloud environment. For example, this leverages the hybrid runtime support that we mentioned. Versioning for the notebooks is also available using Git. We have enhancements there that basically don't take in consideration a lot of the metadata from the notebook and really just what code has changed between the current version and the previous version. And also to connect with runtimes, external runtimes, we noticed that we need extra configuration. So we created a reusable configuration for runtimes based on a generic metadata service. This is all available there. We also looking for feedback from the community to see like where we want to take the next extensions and the next enhancements that will come from Elyra. So if you have suggestions, come create an issue for us, talk to us, and then we can definitely have a discussion there.
And since it's an open source project, what kind of community are you planning to build around Elyra?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think really for the success of open source projects, we really need a community around that. Elyra is a new project. There is only a couple or few weeks that we have open sourced that. And our main goal right now is build a community around that. We really encourage kind of like all sorts of folks to come and start using Elyra. If you see areas that you can contribute, and that can be, for example, from documentation, like if you're trying to install and you see that there are gaps there, or even if you are a developer and want to see different functionalities, we really welcome that. And we are not necessarily restricted, like we are very welcoming community. We also encourage, for example, other companies that are using the Jupyter ecosystem to come try and see how Elyra can help you, and also collaborate and contribute to make Elyra even better.
Right. And now, since the project is sponsored by IBM, I want to also understand how IBM is leveraging this project itself. Because, when it comes to AI machine learning, IBM is one of the powerhouses out there.
Yeah, to this extent, I think I can talk about two of the main components, or divide the library in two areas. One is the Canvas. The Canvas was originated from IBM, and we open sourced this as part of Elyra. Canvas is already widely used inside IBM. If you look into the IBM Cloud and Watson Studio components, things like the SPSS modeler has been using Elyra for a long time. The Canvas. We also have the Infosphere streams, and also like the DB2 explain visualizer that is already using Elyra. For the components that we implemented as part of the JupyterLab extensions, those are a little bit newer, and but even having said that, there are already parts of it that has been incorporated on the latest release of Watson Studio and Cloud Pack for Data, which was, if I believe, middle of December of last year. That already provides you the ability to, the support for JupyterLab, and also the ability to do notebook and other versionings using Git. Other components from Elyra that we have been developing in open source will start becoming more and more visible and available on the next releases of Watson Studio and Cloud Pack for Data as well.
Right. And I'm pretty sure the IBM and the Jupyter community also work closely together. That's one of the reasons this project is there. But I do want to kind of, if you can understand what kind of relationship is there between these two communities.
Yeah, that is a very good point. IBM has been contributing and collaborating with the Jupyter ecosystem for a long time already. We have products that are based on Jupyter notebooks, like the Watson Studio, and we have been collaborating there with fixes that are needed or enhancements that is needed on the platform. We also have created projects and open source via the Jupyter community, like for example, what I mentioned before, the Jupyter Enterprise Gateway. We have also done a predecessor of that component called the Kernel Gateway, and we continue contributing to multiple components on the ecosystem, such as Jupyter Notebooks, JupyterLab. There is a new initiative, Jupyter Server, that is coming up, and JupyterLab extensions as well, very heavily. So yeah, we have been there. We have been there for a while. We have a good relationship, and we contribute to multiple projects in the community. We also ship products based on some of the Jupyter components.
Awesome. One question that I have is that if you look at data science and artificial intelligence, open source has kind of democratized the whole field, because some of these things are, some of the machine itself are so expensive, data scientists, they cannot get access to a lot of resources that they need. So I want your thoughts on what do you think about the role that open source has played in democratizing this field?
Open source has really democratized the access to AI technology within the community. We also have seen a lot of collaboration between enterprises and also the community and the scientists in general to really make those frameworks evolve in a very fast pace compared to how things were coming before. I think if we look, AI and all of this is not something like really new. It has been for decades available, but this was mostly mainstream into like a science or academia environments, and then the evolution of those frameworks were sort of like coming a little bit slower. With open source giving access to everybody, giving the ability for everybody to come and introduce their scenarios and evolve, that really paid and is getting us new frameworks very frequently, enhancements, and getting to where we are at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Luciano, for taking time out and talking to us today. And I look forward to talk to you again. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Feel free to reach out anytime.